for you to do. So tomorrow, there will be a video on Google Classroom where I go over a part of your homework that is for tonight. So you can look at that to make sure you're on the right path for your homework. And then you will go and take your quiz. So same thing, you can pull it into Notability, whatever you want. It's just on frequency tables and histograms. We're gonna go over a bunch today and you should feel confident for the quiz tomorrow. Friday, no live class again. This day will be used as a makeup day. So this is the last section in chapter 1. So you wanna make sure you're handing in any missing assignments you have. Make sure we have made comments. Sometimes we don't see a file attached or something. So make sure you're going through and you're getting points for things, and email us if you think there's an issue or anything like that. I'm going to touch a little bit for the start of next week, but we will also be sending out an email on Friday in more detail. So if you're confused, hopefully things will be cleared up by Friday. Monday and Tuesday, for the first group of students we're going to see in school. You will be in class with us. We'll have class with you. For the students who are virtual, you will not be logging on to a live class. There will be activities for you to do on Google Classroom, and it's going to be a Chapter 1 review worksheet, and there will be videos for you to watch, and everything will be on there for you. So if you're at home, you're going to watch the videos. If you're in school with us, just like that. And the same thing's going to go for Thursday and Friday of that week. Wednesdays, everyone is home. We'll be logging on. Everyone will be logging on to live Zoom. Thursday and Friday, it will be the same thing. When you're in class with us, you will be with us. We'll be teaching you in the school. If you're at home, you do not need to log on to a live Zoom. Kind of a little bit confusing. Following that week, from here on out, there will be live Zooms every day. Whether you're at home or you're in school with us, you'll be there. It's just next week that's going to be a little bit confusing, but we will be sending out an email very detailed on Friday. Questions as of right now. Tomorrow you have your quiz. Make sure you're handing in your homework for tonight on there, and Friday's a makeup day for this week.
I have a quick question.
Yeah.
For next week, since there's no Zoom or anything, if we have questions, do we contact you on email or Google Classroom?
Yes, email. Email
okay,
all of us so you can get the fastest response. One of us will respond to you.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome.
Yeah.
Still be lessons on Wednesday. Yeah, and Wednesday there will still be a lesson. Everyone will log on. Everyone's virtual Wednesday. So we'll all be logging on to Zoom on Wednesday. Live Zoom.
Will the Wednesday Zooms be like the same times as they are now, or with the
tomorrow
schedule?
Yeah, next week it's back to that old schedule. First period starts at 7:20, and we're back on that schedule. That schedule is on Google Classroom for you. It's the traditional bell schedule.
It's like 11:50 to 12:30 would be this class.
It's posted at the top of the agenda too.
Okay.
But every Wednesday from here on out, that will be same schedule every day. Any other questions? It's a little confusing. We'll send an email out. All right. So we are going to go over a few questions on your homework from last night. So pull that out, and I will send it over to Mr. King to start.
Sounds good. On the homework, where we had the most problems looking through some of your answers, we're setting up the intervals. So we're going to look at those to start. I want to start with number 3 and 4 we're going to do just real quickly together because this is where we're having a lot of trouble. If you look at number 3, it gives you the data points, and it says the first interval is between 0 and 20. Now, when you see this, what a lot of you did is you said, okay, it's 0 to 20, which means the next interval would be, up to 40, then 60, then 80, then 100, and so forth. But what is the difference between 0 and 20? Kelly, what do we get when we find a difference between 0 and 20?
20.
Yeah, 20. So that means that each one of these, we're going to have to add 20. So if I would go ahead and I start my interval the first one 0 to 20. And that means my next number is going to have to be 21. So Kelly, if I add 20 to 21, what does that go to?
$40.
Okay, and I think that's where the problem we were having yesterday is that the first interval is 0 to 20. The next interval starts at 21, and we have to add 20 to that 21. So that's going to bring us to 41. And then, Kelly, since I got you on, what would our next interval start at? After 41 comes
42.
good. And then add 20 to that. What's 42 plus 20?
$62.
Awesome. And then now we definitely want to see how far we need to go as far as intervals, how many. So we look for the highest number, and we see that there's actually 2 of them here, which would be 90. We have 2 number 90s. So we need to make sure that we have an interval that includes 90. Once we do, we could stop. So I'm going to continue on. After 62 comes 63. We add 20 to that, and that brings us, and that brings us to 83. After 83 comes 84. We add 20, that brings us to 104. And that's our intervals here. So do you see that we're actually adding 20 to each one? So it's kind of, a lot of you thought there was like 20, 40, 60, 80, but that's not the case. And if you look at number 4, it's basically the same as number 3, where if you look at the first interval, 100 and 105, you might think intervals of 5. So 105, 110, 115, 120, but that's not the case either. So let's take a look at this. Lexi, what's the difference between 100 and 105?
5.
Awesome. Looking through my data set, what's my highest number in that data set? My max.
122.
Great. So we need to go up to 122. We're going to start with what's given, 100 to 105. And now we're going to start our next interval. So what number do I start with, Lexi? After 105 comes?
106.
Good. Add 5 to that. What do you get?
111.
Good. Next comes?
112.
2.
117.
Good. And we'll have one more. What's the last one?
118 to 123.
Awesome. And that's it. And so these ones are a little bit trickier because you just automatically think you're counting by 20s, counting by 5s. But you could see that it goes to 105, 111, 117, 123. All right, so I'm gonna, I think that's the hardest part, is setting up our intervals, at least looking through your homework. So definitely take your time on that. Ms. Karp's gonna walk through on the histogram examples, and we're actually gonna get right to your homework today, which will have some more histograms. So to you, Ms. Karp.
Thank you. All right, so we are going to flip over to the back side of this worksheet, and we're going to look at number 7. So this problem says, a survey asks people how many phone numbers they have stored, or actually I started this one with you guys, didn't I? I did. So we got through the intervals, correct? Anyone? What did I get through on number 7 with you guys yesterday? Because I know I started it. Morgan, I think you were in class yesterday. Can you tell me do you remember if I went through the intervals with you?
I'm not really sure.
Okay.
I don't really remember. I'm
That's
sorry.
fine. You're good. All right, let's go through it again. There's nothing wrong with doing it again. All right, so they asked us to make a frequency table with the first interval. So we have our first interval given to us, which is 1 through 10. And they didn't set this frequency distribution up for you, but just like on the previous page, we have our interval, tally, and frequency column. So you can just write that in. And they gave us our first interval to be 1 through 10. And so you guys went through this last night, but what are we adding to 1 to get to 10? What are we adding here? Brendan, what are we adding to 1 to get to 10?
9.
9, yeah. We're adding 9. Good. So what comes after 10, Brendan?
11.
And what's 11 plus 9?
20.
Good. And what about what interval would come after this one?
21, 30.
Good. And do you know when we would stop making intervals? Can you tell me when we would be done?
Once you're past 49.
Yeah, because 49 is our biggest number in our data set. So we need to make sure that 49 falls in one of these intervals. So how many more intervals would we make here, Brendan?
3 more. No, 2 more.
Good. And what would they be?
31, 40, and 41, 50.
Awesome. Thank you, Brendan. Yeah, we're adding 9 in each of these to get this final number, the ending part of our interval. Awesome. And then you're going to go through and tally. And you guys should have already went through and tallied these. If you didn't do it yet, I'll give you a few seconds to go through and start tallying. This is the easiest place to make mistakes. Once you get your intervals, just when you're just crossing off numbers like 45, we know that falls in the last column. Super easy to just mix up the intervals here. So make sure you take your time going through and tallying your data value in the right interval. And for someone who finished the tallies from last night, can you tell me what you got in your frequency column?
Four, 6, 4, 7, 3.
Okay. So I think we may have had a small mistake in tallying. Were intervals the same as here? Is what's up on the board? That was Kelly, right?
No, Maya. But
Maya.
yeah, they're the same.
Okay, so you probably just made a small mistake in tallying. When you go through and tally, we should get 2, 8, 4, 7, and 3. So make sure you double check that. But that is what we will get in our frequency column when we're tallying all of our data values. That's how many tallies you'll have in each of these intervals. Super easy to make a mistake there. All right, now we're going to go over to our histogram. We have our axes, And now we have to put our data in here. What are we going to put on our horizontal axis? Morgan, do you want to tell me what we're going to put on our horizontal axis?
The intervals.
Yeah, our intervals, and we have 5 of them. So we're going to split this up into 5 different sections for each of our intervals. And we're making a space here because we do not start at 0. And Morgan, what do these numbers mean? What are they measuring?
They're the how many numbers are in a cell phone.
Yeah, numbers in a cell phone. So make sure you're labeling what these numbers mean. Good. Cameron, can you tell me what is going to go on our vertical axis?
Two, 4, 6, and 8.
Yeah, we're going to make marks for our frequency. And like Cameron said, he's going up to 8, and that's because our highest frequency is 8 right there. So we want to make sure we count up to 8. Nice. And what would we label this axis, Cameron?
Frequency.
Awesome. All right, so now we're going to draw our bars. We're going to draw our bars up to the frequency for each interval. So 1 through 10, we have it going up to 2. 11 through 20, we have it going up to 8. And they're sharing sides here. They're not separated. This is a histogram, and these numbers come right after one another. And what's the last thing we would have to do for our histogram? What are we missing? We have one more thing missing. Lizeth, do you know what that is? What we're missing here?
No, I don't.
Has something to do
A
with
title.
up here. Yeah, title. Nice, Lamb. We have to title it. What would you title this? If you had to give this histogram a title, Liam, what would you make it? Something about average. What are we measuring here?
Probably. I'm not sure.
So it's all right. So we're measuring numbers in a cell phone. So when we're looking at the frequencies, we're looking at average cell number saved. We're looking at the distribution of it. So you could say average cell phone saved. Did anyone else have something different or similar to this? Doesn't have to be exactly what I have here. Something that summarizes what you're measuring. Questions on the frequency distribution or histogram here? All right, let's look at part C. Part C asked us, how many more people have 11 to 20 numbers stored compared to 41 to 50 numbers stored? So we know we have 8 people who have 11 to 20 numbers stored and 3 people who have 41 to 50 numbers stored. So we're comparing these two intervals, the 11 to 20 and the 41 to 50. So they're asking how many more people have 11 to 20 numbers saved than 41 to 50. What would this answer be? Lexi, what do you think? What did you put down for part C?
I put after 41 minus 50, I put 51 minus 60.
So we're not, the numbers that they give us here, those are just directing us to these intervals that we made. So we're not using the numbers 11 to 20 or 41 to 50, we're using our frequency. The number of people
5?
in that interval. Yes, exactly, 5. Because we have 8 people who have 11 to 20 numbers saved and 3 people who have 41 to 50 numbers saved. So 5 more people fall into the first category than the second. 5 more. Questions on that? Questions on any part of this homework? Do you want me to go over anything else on here? And between today and yesterday, you should have a decent bit of this worksheet filled out. So make sure you're handing it in on Google Classroom. All right, let's head over to Google Classroom. Your homework for tonight is another worksheet talking about frequency distributions and histograms. Looks like this. Talks about systolic and diastolic blood pressure. Someone unmute themselves and let me know it's on Google Classroom so I know you guys can see it when you find it.
It was posted.
All right, thank you. All right, so let's read the directions. And if you don't have it pulled up in an app you're using, you can always just take out a sheet of paper and write what we're going to go over down. So it says, George Maynard has high blood pressure. He must try to keep his systolic pressure between 110 and 140 millimeters of mercury and his diastolic pressure between 75 and 90. The doctor does not want his blood pressure to go over 150/95. The 2 tables below show George's readings for each day. So the first set of data they give us is systolic. On the back of this worksheet, they talk about diastolic. If you look at what the doctor doesn't want him to go over, they don't want to go over 150/95. This first number that they talk about is systolic, and the second number is diastolic. It's just the way they read blood pressure. It's a measure of 2 different numbers. The first one they call systolic, and the bottom number they call diastolic. So we are going to look at the back of this worksheet where it talks about diastolic pressure. So here we have our data for diastolic. They want us to make a frequency table. They give us our first interval, which is 75 to 90, which we have written in our table. What are we adding here from 75 to get to 79? What are we adding?
4.
4. Good. We're adding 4. Gianna, what number comes after 80?
90.
Or, my bad, I gave you the answer. What number goes after 79 is 80. My bad. What's 80 plus 4, Gianna?
84.
Good. There we go, making the same mistake. What number comes after 84?
88.
So you're adding 4 to that 84. We want to think about the number that comes directly after 84. Just plus 1. 84 plus 1.
85.
Yes, awesome. And here's where we're going to add 4, which will get us to 89. So go through and make the last 2 intervals for this one. And Kelly, when you're done that, read those off to me. Remember, we're adding 4.
$90 to $94, $95 to $99.
What was the last one you said? My bad, I didn't hear you.
$95 to $99.
Awesome. Good job. And now next, we're going to look at the diastolic measures they gave us, and we're going to go through and tally. So I'll give you a second to go and do that, and make sure you're being careful here. This is where I make a bunch of mistakes here too. Make sure you're making your tally in the right interval. I'll give you a minute to do that. Caleb, when you're done tallying, can you read off what you got for each frequency, for each interval?
Yeah. So that would just be 5, then 10, then 10, then 2, then 3.
Awesome. Good. And if you've got different numbers here, that's just a mistake you made in the tally marks. So make sure you go back through to find your mistake. Next, we're going to make our histogram. Brendan, what are we going to put on our horizontal axis?
I have no clue.
So we are going to use our frequency table here to get our histogram. So we're going to use 2 things from this frequency table. One's going to be our intervals, one's going to be our frequency. Which one do you think goes on the horizontal axis, the one on the bottom?
The frequency?
So it's actually the opposite. We're going to put our intervals on the horizontal and frequency on the vertical. So we have 5 intervals here. So our horizontal axis is going to be split up into 5 sections for our intervals. And we're making a space because we're not starting at 0. And then we're going to have our frequencies on the vertical axis. But before we move on to the vertical axis, what else do we have to do to this horizontal axis? What are we missing here? Lizeth, what are we missing on the horizontal axis?
A title.
Yeah, a label for it. So what do these numbers mean? What are these numbers measuring?
Diastolic.
Yeah, diastolic or diastolic pressure. And then we have our frequencies on our vertical axis. What number do we have to make sure we go up to on our vertical axis?
10.
10, yeah, because our highest frequency is 10. Nice. So I'm going to count by 2s. You can count by 1s if you want. And we're going to make sure we label that frequency. And then we're going to go through and make our bars for each of our intervals. So go ahead and draw your bars. I'll give you a second to do that. So our first one, our interval, has a frequency of 5. So we're going up to 5, in between 4 and 6 there. And our bars are touching here. They're sharing a side. And what's the last thing we're missing? We have one more thing we need to add to our histograms. We have labels.
Title.
Yeah, title. What would you title this histogram? What would you summarize it as? What are we looking at? Cameron, what would you make? Go ahead. Sorry.
Diastolic data.
Yeah, diastolic data. Nice. It's a good one. So it's just summarizing what we're measuring and what we're looking at on this histogram. Have your average diastolic blood pressure. You don't have to have exactly diastolic data, but that's a great title. Questions? And then they're going to go through, oopsies, and they're asking us also for our mean and median. So we just worked with them. And here you're going to want to maybe erase all the slashes you made on your data up above so you can see your numbers. But the rest of this worksheet is for homework. Tomorrow, when you come to class, there will be a video on, or we're not coming to class, but when you go onto Google Classroom, there will be a video on Google Classroom talking about the front of this worksheet. So make sure you go through and do it tonight, and if you want to go and check your work tomorrow, go ahead and watch that, and then you will go and take your quiz. And Friday is a makeup day. Any questions about the rest of this week? All right. Well, there's a minute left in class. Go ahead and work on this worksheet. The rest of it is for homework, and make sure you turn it in on Google Classroom. And I will see you guys on Monday, back in the classroom.
See you on Monday. Have a good weekend.
Thanks, you too.
Thank you.
Thanks.